Hello, my name is Rachel and today I'm talking about task number 16 for the Read Harder Challenge from Book Riot. This topic today is to read a historical romance by an author of color. Now, I don't mind the diversity in choosing books by authors of color, but I don't tend to like historical romance. Historical fiction is good, but like the romance ones with like the bodice ripping covers, I don't get into those as much. So I did find a few that I'm interested in, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about those first. So first up is probably the most popular one on this list, and I feel like it doesn't need any more support from small little booktubers like me, but that's Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I believe Diana Gabaldon is from Mexican descent, so she should work for this category, and this is a very, very popular book, and I have been recommended this book several times, so I went ahead and added it to this list as a possibility. Next up is more author-based. I found the name Beverly Jenkins several times, so I feel like most of her work is going to do really well, and this is one that comes highly recommended by several sites that I used while researching this topic because I don't know much about historical fiction at all, let alone specifically authors of color in historical romance, but Beverly Jenkins' name came up several times. So I found two that I thought would be kind of interesting. Again, they do kind of have the bodice ripping covers, so not quite my cup of tea, but I could give them a try. The first one is Forbidden. This takes place, I believe, in the Old West, and the other one is called Captured, and this takes place, I think, at sea. I think he's a pirate. I thought those sounded kind of interesting, and like I said, I'm not huge into the bodice ripping historical fiction, but those two were ones that I thought maybe we could try these. But it seems like any Beverly Jenkins book is going to pretty much work for this, so you should be safe with any of hers. Next up is another author that it seems like should be pretty safe to pick if you're looking for something by this category, and that is Piper Hughley, I believe. Hughley? I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. There's a lot of U's in there. The first one that I thought might be interesting is The Preacher's Promise. And this is mostly because it takes place in Ohio, where I'm from. So I thought this could be interesting. The cover does not look like a bodice ripper, which I am into, and it actually looks kind of like sinister, so I'm interested. And yeah, I don't know too much about this. I believe it takes place in the 1800s, so definitely a historical fiction, and it is listed as a romance, so that should definitely work. And like I said, I believe Piper Hughley should work for multiple of her books. I think the majority of hers are historical romances. Next up is another one I feel like I can just broadly recommend the author based on what I have found through researching, and that is Elissa Cole. Again, it seems like she has quite a few that are historical romances, and there's two that I'm thinking possibly of trying out. I love the cover for this first one. It's the first in a series, and the book is called An Extraordinary Union, and this takes place during the Civil War. I think the cover is fantastic. Like I said, I have a hard time getting over the really over-the-top covers, but this one is very like simple and elegant. I love her dress in this, and I love how beautiful this cover is, and it doesn't immediately turn me off, so I'm very interested in this one. This is probably a top contender for me. Next up, I have two that I'm looking at from Janine Lin. These are Asian-based historical romances, which is interesting to me because it's a little bit different than what you typically see. The first up is Butterfly Swords. This takes place with the Tang Dynasty, and there's several in this series that look really interesting. I think in the case with most historical romances, they don't necessarily need to be read in order, so there's several in this series that I might get into. I'll have to dig a little bit deeper into these books. Next up is a book I found that is actually an anthology, which I thought could be interesting, especially since I'm not super into the historical romance. This would give me just like short snippets. This one's called The Brightest Day, a Juneteenth historical romance anthology, and it's by several of the authors I've already mentioned. Elissa Cole is on here, Piper Hughley, Lena Hart, and Kiana Alexander. So this would absolutely work, and yeah, it could be really interesting to read an anthology and see several voices in this collection. Similarly, I found another anthology that also sounded really interesting. It's called Daughters of a Nation, a Black Suffragette historical romance anthology. This is by the same 4 authors, so both of these anthologies sound interesting, and they very much could work, and I really like the idea of the anthology. So at the moment, I'm probably leaning towards either Outlander, one of the 2 anthologies, or the Extraordinary Union about the Civil War. So I'm not sure which one yet, but I am excited to give these a try. This is not a genre I probably would have sought out on my own. This is the whole reason why I really liked the idea of doing the Read Harder Challenge when I found it last year, and at least trying to read a few of the categories if I don't manage to make all of them, just to kind of branch out and find books that I wouldn't normally find. So if you have any of your favorite historical romances by an author of color, I would love to know down below. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.